Saturday, June 20th, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to Bosi Briefs. I want to thank you for joining us. This program publishes every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where retired Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi weighs in on the current events. Please do share these episodes far and wide and subscribe for free at jmcbroadcasting.com. For those just coming aboard, who is Riccardo Bosi? Riccardo Bosi is an international treasure, former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel who served 24 years in the Australian Army. He's a national leader of Australia One Party. Please welcome Riccardo Bosi.
John, good morning. Great to be here. Thanks for your kind invitation.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. It's been 2 weeks, and I'm glad we're sitting here today. There's a lot I want to go over. We're going to talk to our audience, folks. We're going to talk about the UFC for a moment. I know that's kind of old news already, but it was such a historical day, and we're going to break it down what really took place there and why this was so significant. But before we get to that, I launched a show called Off World with JMC. What I'd like to do is just run a brief. There's an image. There's Alex Collier. He is one of he was the guest, and retired Colonel, Delta Forces, Chuck Sellers. Fascinating episode, very insightful, very educational, and incredible information. Of course, coming off the heels at the same time, Spielberg has released his movie, Disclosure Day, I think it's called. But what I'd like to do, if I may, is just run this brief promo for about a minute or so, come back and talk about this briefly, and then have Riccardo weigh in on the topic of off-world entities. Run the promo, please.
Since President Dwight D. Eisenhower, top-secret files were created concerning off-world activity and visits to planet Earth. Undoubtedly, over the decades, these files have grown. Area 51 is commonly known. We've heard and seen images of UFOs, but not until now has this been validated and presented to the American people and to the world, as President Donald J. Trump released the first tranche of top-secret files. This is the beginning. There's much more to come. Join John Michael Chambers and guests on a new monthly panel, JMC Broadcast, Off-World with JMC. Premiere episode launches Thursday, June 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com and join us on this intriguing and challenging journey together, taking the Great Awakening to new and higher heights. Come travel through the portal with us. Where we go one, we go all.
So it's no longer a secret. President Donald J. Trump, truth and transparency, has done what no other president was willing to do or was able to do, perhaps at the same time, since 1947, and that's released the information. Rick, you'd commented on this in a previous broadcast, which I actually inserted into the first show, Off-World with JMC. But we had the missing scientists. We had the termination of the folks on a NASA established board by the president. Now we have the third tranche of data coming out. Last comment before I pose the question to you is, it's reached mainstream, which is wonderful. I mean, I caught a clip from Jesse Waters, who's, of course, at Fox News, and he ran some of the actual real footage, not AI stuff, of that was released by the president, showing the craft, saucer, whatever you'd want to call the orb, and the aliens, and put up on the screen 4 different types of ET or extraterrestrials. Reptilians, I forgot the names of the 4 he mentioned. That's pretty amazing that level of content has hit mainstream news. Are we scratching the surface? Is there going to be deeper and deeper revelations to come in the release from the president. What's your take on this subject at large?
Like you, I'm thrilled it's finally getting out there. And with your show particularly, it's one thing for the files to come out, but for someone like Chuck Sellers to be the deputy head of Delta, so this guy is deeply embedded in a real world. Military officers are not prone to flights of fancy or hallucination. We have to be very grounded in what we do, and so having someone like Chuck on the show is just brilliant. Because I remember Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the children of rich ETs would buzz the Earth's countryside just to terrify people, and they'd always present themselves to some Peruvian farmer that no one would ever believe. So now we actually have real evidence from real people with real experiences, lived experiences, and many of us have had them. They're all very different, though. So if you're looking for consistency, it won't be there. It'll be very, very different. But in terms of the variety of life forms out there, their intentions, it's bigger than Star Wars, and I'm glad it's finally starting.
Me too. I encourage anyone who's interested in this subject, and I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't be interested. There's nearly 8 billion of us. It's been kept a secret for many years, even though one could say through some of Spielberg's early work, Close Encounters, E.T., so forth, those were Gene Roddenberry's work in the original Star Treks. I mean, those were really The Matrix with Keanu Reeves. Those were documentaries to an extent of what has already taken place, perhaps in the past, or things that are going on off-world. But now that it's official through top secret files that every president knows about since Eisenhower being released is extraordinary. So I just encourage all of our viewers to watch that first episode. I was all ears. Alex Collier is not new to the subject, and to your point, Rick, Colonel Sellers, he shared in great detail his personal experience of we'll call them off-world entities that visited with him in great detail. And Alex shared some other interesting information. I'm going to step off the subject for a minute because we got so much to cover, but I, for one, am fascinated by this. I, for one, am thrilled it's coming out. And while you can say a lot about Spielberg, is this Spielberg now? Is this 2.0 Spielberg? Is he a good guy or not? Different conversation for different day. In my opinion, his film, Disclosure Day, I think it's called. I saw it the other day here in Thailand. I'm not a film critic. I would say, though, it wasn't one of his best films overall, in my opinion. But in terms of the timing of this, the subject matter of this, Rick, am I going out on a limb here and saying this is part of the operation? The release of this film, because the timing of it and what they've displayed in this film, I mean, it just fits hook, line, and sinker with what the president is doing right now.
It's exactly what it is. It's a big name associating himself publicly with the reality of what many of us have either experienced or suspected for many years. So it's part of the show. And there's another part that everyone's got to remember about this, and why, in answer to your unasked question, why would people be against it? This is going to challenge people's understanding of their place in the universe and their relationship with the Creator. Because there are the biblical literalists, the Earth is 6,000 years old, as calculated by a minister some years ago. And then there are definitional issues like, what is an angelic being? What is a satanic being? What is an extraterrestrial? And their whole grasp, the model that lives in many people's heads, is so limited that it will cause them some grief. And so as the journey progresses, and we've been well prepared by Gene Roddenberry and all the intergalactic movies that have been out there for years, we've been well prepared. But there are some definitional issues that now need to be sorted, because there's going to be some big fights on some small words that mean a great deal. Like, for example, what is demonic? What is an extraterrestrial? Are they good? Are they bad? Is it real? Should we be frightened? Should we be terrified? Where is God in all of this? And maybe just finish with that last question. Where is God in all of this? What we tend to forget about life, and I'm terrible at this. It's just, I guess it's my training and my nature. If there's a problem, I have to fix it. If I don't fix it, it won't get done. And I don't mean that in an arrogant kind of way, but I feel compelled to take action in the face of a problem. But what I forget, and what I guess most of us forget, and many of us unfortunately believe, not me, but many believe, there is no God out there. And so we're just stuck on this rock. And if we can't do it, we fail. And we've got to remember that behind the scenes, driving this whole movement forward, the whole universe and multi-universes, if you want to go that far, and we can talk about that one day. But what's driving that? Well, the Creator's behind the lot. And the Creator doesn't sit back uninvolved. And we've had this discussion. I know we've got other things to cover, but just give me a moment, if you could, please. Dr. Stephen Meyer's book, The Return of the God Hypothesis, provides the scientific evidence that even the materialist/atheist scientists accept, that the scientific evidence reveals a theological, not a theistic model, not a deistic model of the Creator. What does that mean? The deistic model says the Creator created everything, then he's sitting back and watching us handle free will, not involved. The theistic model says that the Creator is daily involved in our lives. Now, guess what the science actually, for those that like saying the science is settled, well, the science is settled. The universe is run in a theistic model. The Creator is involved on a daily basis with all of us, which means the energy and the force behind this trajectory, we're not on our own. We are part of the Creator's plan. The Creator has a plan, and that Creator is daily involved in our lives. So as people transition into this new world of extraterrestrials and it begins to challenge them, they should take comfort in two things. One, the Creator has the plan, always has, always will, knows exactly what's happening, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, to whom and why. And the second thing to hang on is Jesus Christ, who was the best of all of us, the gold standard, who taught us how to live, how to love, and how to die. And so as particularly the Christians start to get challenged, and other belief systems too, because they have a role in this as well, which is interesting. Galactic wars from 100,000 years ago, which are considered to be their gods. Well, not quite, but they were here. They did that. But those two facts remain constant. The theistic model, where the Creator is involved in our lives, and Jesus Christ being the best of us that got through it and showed us how to do it, what we need to do. And so just enjoy the journey. Many of us have had experiences. You've got Alex Collier, which was just fantastic. He's a much respected commentator on these issues. And I don't think you could have picked a better first up guest alongside Chuck Sellers to kick off your series, because it's fascinating. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Well worth your time.
Thank you, Riccardo. You nailed it right out of the gate. In my opinion, this film, in part, addresses, the challenges that people are going to be put through about religion, about our Creator, about this film. In part, addresses ethics and unity, and soul, spirit, consciousness. All of these things are strewn throughout this film. And again, the timing of the release of this film, with the president releasing the actual data, is incredible to me. And so we'll move on to another subject, but I encourage all our viewers, regardless where you stand on this issue, we're all going to go through this portal together now. There's no turning back. And we're all going to learn a lot. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I embrace it. I'm thrilled to death. The more truth we can get, the easier it will be for us ourselves to ascend. And so please do watch the broadcast. It's quite different. You've got Spielberg's take. You've got the administration releasing the hard files. And then you've got my show, which takes it just a step or two ahead of all of that. So that's the role we're playing. And you're absolutely right, Rick. Alex Collier, what a powerhouse. And we love Colonel Sellers. I look forward to the next episode. It's a monthly broadcast. I do want to change subjects. Let's put up the EBS image for a minute. The reason I'm invoking this at the moment, you can see this is it may have been Fox News on mainstream television and some online platforms. We've been seeing the EBS colors flashing, coming in and out various times, multiple networks, multiple times over the last couple of weeks. While the EBS, in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear, maybe I'm wrong, but certainly hasn't been activated. But what do you make of this? Is this preparation? What are they doing? Because these are not accidents, but it also hasn't been deployed. What do you think's going on here?
Yeah, this is a soft launch. This is to soften the shock of the new. It's just familiarity. Oh, that's our EBS, EBS, EBS. So when it does happen, there's a level of confidence there and familiarity with it. It's always the shock of the new that causes concern. So that's all it is. It's a soft launch of the idea. So when it happens, the shock's not there. The shock will be there because of what happens during the ABS. But this is genuinely just telling people, get ready, buy some extra bottles of UHT milk and water and food and tin food and things like that. And when it comes, the shock won't be there of the EBS itself, but what happens, what reveals, and what falls apart, and then is quickly reassembled shortly thereafter. So yeah, you've described it. It's just a soft launch of an idea, like a major casino might have or a major venue might have a soft launch to get the bugs out, to make sure everyone's aware of what's got to happen, how it's got to happen. And this is the same. It's just warming people up to the idea when they see those colors. Oh, yeah, I've seen that before. I know about that. That's the soft launch. It's good. It's the EBS. We'll be fine. Yep.
Understood. A lot of folks in our movement here at home, and I'm sure this is throughout the world, people that are paying attention to the operation, they're looking at it as a signal that there's a permeating narrative within the movement that says that EBS is going to be launched between June 24th and July 4th. And again, 107, not that he's all-knowing and not that he's always right, but he's been highly accurate, and he's far more connected than most of the people within the movement. He says that's not going to happen within that time frame, and he pushed it out much further out later this year, perhaps before the midterm. So let's see how it plays out. June 24th is days away, my birthday, and July 5th is shortly thereafter. But I think your analysis is spot on. It's soft launch. It's preparing the folks for what is going to happen when it does in fact happen. Talk about Tulsi Gabbard. You and I discussed her before when it was announced she was leaving, that we speculated she might pull a few hand grenade pins on the way out the door. Seems she's done that. We have three main things that have caught my attention. One is Fauci, that drop. Two, Russiagate, that drop, which is election theft, treason, the highest levels of individuals. And three, the biolabs. Massive, massive stuff. Treason and crimes against humanity, glaring. Now, of course, we got to pick up the intel and get something done with it. From your lens, not the surface, but from your lens, what do you see happening with those three major issues now that she's on her way out? Those issues have been exposed. They're official. The world sees it. The world knows it. What's going to happen over the course of, let's say, the rest of this year concerning those events?
Yeah, these are the big ones. Excuse me. These are the big ones. And people should note how it was done. Because Tulsi Gabbard's dropped this. She's had this, the White Hats have had this forever, but the timing's important. Excuse me. And it's tied in with giving people something to celebrate. It's finally out there. It's not the Epstein files, but we finally got it officially out there. Now, the fact that Tulsi's dropped it, and I shouldn't refer to her as Tulsi because that's as if we're friends. We're not. But the DNI, the former DNI dropped that information, and now it's out there and it will be actioned. Now, what's interesting about the timing, apart from the 250th celebration, is the fact that her replacement, the temporary head of DNI, that won't be, is having difficulty getting confirmed, he's got a clean pair of hands. They don't have to look at him with her baggage, so to speak. So she's dropped the big bombs. So if there's any splashback, temporary, false, makes no difference. He has a clean pair of hands. This is Tulsi's job, and then she wears the plaudits or the approbation, depending on how you want to see it. But he's got clean hands to continue moving forward with what D&I must do in this next phase. So he'll, whilst the investigation on those three major issues, which are of prime importance to the people, they're going to be pursued. They'll be in the news cycle. He'll be busy pursuing another line of operation and another line of effort. So there's this constant flow of activity across multiple LOEs and LOOs to get out what's got to get out as quickly as it possibly can. But that's now rolling. The hard evidence, mainstream media, it's official. It's as official as the ETs and everything else. This tidal wave, this tsunami of hard information from the same people that lied to you before is now going to come out and telling you a new story. We knew that had to happen. The mainstream media heads had to be the same ones recanting, telling a whole new story, but they'll be pursued with some vigor, and it's starting to build up the legitimate case in the minds of many who don't believe the news, the legitimate case that, guess what, Trump was right about everything from the very start.
Absolutely. And it's going to be an interesting, I'm excited for the celebration, July 4th, of course, so forth and so on, all the events. But I can't wait for July 5th to arrive because, in my opinion, to support what you just stated, from July 5th up until the midterms, which I don't think are going to happen this year, neither does 107, but it's going to be incredible. The stage is set, folks. Get ready for real fireworks. I'd like to talk about Australia, and I know our Australian audience will be happy that we're spending some time here, as we should be. Take it wherever you like. I like to put up this image to my producer. I don't know if there's any credibility to this or not, so I just figured I'd run it past you if you heard anything. U.S. military to build war-ready stockpile in Australia. Again, I don't have a team of researchers behind me to vet everything out, but this came across my space. And do you know anything about this before we talk about other issues of Australia on the world stage?
Look, no, the actual announcement itself, no, I wasn't aware of it, but it shouldn't come as a surprise. We already have a semi-permanent presence by the US Marine Corps in Australia. We have increasing bilateral and multilateral military exercises every 2-3 years with nations from around the planet. That the US wants to establish a more permanent presence here makes a lot of sense in the current context. We are a fantastic aircraft carrier, and I mean that in the best possible sense. We're a big chunk of the Western Hemisphere, way down on the tail end of the planet, where we have access to the Indo-Pacific region and Antarctica if you want to go south. So this is geostrategically extremely important piece of land. And that's why the Rothschilds wanted this as their base for the next 1,000 years. And that's another story, but that's what was planned. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that the US intends to, or has announced that it has, it's in all the major press, South China News and the rest of it. It makes a lot of sense. They're going to be storing their stockpiles in our southeastern state, Victoria, and store them in the existing military establishments, and then spreading them out as they need, because it's a big continent. It's 4,000 kilometers across from Perth to Sydney, west-east. So it's a big chunk of land, about the same size, slightly smaller than the continental US. And so it makes a lot of sense. And if I can put this touch on it, it's finally coming out that Australia was never actually its own sovereign state. It was always a possession of the Crown, and the DJT is now the owner. So the owner can do what he likes. And mind you, I'd prefer to see a lot of US forces here as opposed to, as we had, without authority, a Chinese warship drive into Sydney Harbour, which is an act of war by definition, because they believe they owned it. And under the old regime, I think they owned probably most of it. They don't anymore. Another discussion for another time. But is it surprising? Not to me. Is it welcome? Absolutely. We have to this fits in nicely with certainly our plan to increase our military spend up to 10% of GDP, because we need to build up a real force in this continent to assist in real ways, in tangible ways, the US as we clean up the rest of the planet. Now, this might sound a little Patton-esque when he made the statement that it was their destiny for the English-speaking peoples to rule the world, and that upset the Soviets. Well, tough. We'll be tidying up the planet, and as you know, our intention down here in Oz is to establish an Indo-Pacific hegemony with sufficient global influence to shape normative orders. What does that mean? It means we'll be militarily intimidating in our own right and have enough global influence to shape local behavior patterns in other countries while assisting them to become slightly more humane. And so it fits in nicely with a global strategy of peace and goodwill to all men. As Donald Trump said, he's realistic about other nations and their cultures. But certainly from an Australian perspective, we don't want to be supporting those countries that have slave economies, that torture people, that have children as young as 6, for example, mining cobalt for electric cars. All that's going to go by the wayside, but it's going to be done in a measured way, but backed up by some serious military capability. So, yep, more than welcome to have more US forces here in this country as we move forward into the 21st century.
Exciting times and great changes taking place. How would you, from a psychological analysis viewpoint, how would you gauge the mindset of the Australian people in terms of what's happening with your country, what's being revealed, exposed, how they're consuming that, and what their temperament or take is on the future of Australia? That's a big question, I realize, but you're the man to take it on.
Good question. A year ago, and to some extent still, there's a large anti-American push in Australia because we've been subject to the same brainwashing the rest of the planet has. And yet we are now seeing on social media now Australian versions of what we've been seeing overseas. The two-tiered law system in the UK, we're seeing it here in Australia, where a minor infraction causes a white Australian to be arrested and put into incarceration, whereas somebody from, a crazy black African, and I'm not being racist here, this is just what they've intentionally set up in Australia, wounding, assaulting police and causing all sorts of crimes, and they get bail. And now that's reaching consciousness here, delivered not only by social media, but by mainstream media. So we're starting to feel the pain, and we're seeing the word Australia tied in with the same problems that we're seeing overseas. Second point, the World Cup, for example, is now an opportunity for the world to see the United States as it is. And the message coming back from just about everybody, including Australians in the US for the World Cup, clips on social media saying, in a good Aussie accent, they told us it was crap over here, but it's beautiful. The beaches are beautiful. The people are great. The food's fantastic. And so what's happening is they're hearing a different message in their own accent, that the US isn't the great Satan, as we've been told, and that it's a great place and the people are wonderful. Again, not an accident that the World Cup was ensured to be run in the US. So this was the US on show. And it's ameliorating a very damaging and damaged reputation that has been given to you quite unfairly over many, many, many years. In fact, there's a wonderful, the Scots in Boston, the imagery there, 2 different nations in their kilts, playing bagpipes, singing, drinking together. And as Sandy said before the show, drinking Boston dry. That's not a bad achievement. But guess what it didn't have? Cars being torched, shops being destroyed, just people in the streets celebrating 2 different nations, 2 different distinct cultures, but brothers and sisters in arms, neighbors, friends, and enjoying themselves immensely. And so that anti-US sentiment is being washed away by the reality that the Americans are brilliant people and the country is a brilliant country. And the lies are just that. They are lies. And it brought a tear to my eye when I was listening to a song written by a Bostonian, I think, about Boston and the Scots. And if you can find it, it's just beautiful. And it reminds us of the beauty of the Christian West, because that's what we are. We're not throwing homosexuals off buildings. We're not burning cars. We're not smashing shops. The Christian West is something very real, and it's making a comeback, baby.
You bet. Thank you, sir. You know, while America has its scars in history, if you took America out of history, you tell me what condition this world would be in right now. I'll just leave it at that. I'm proud to be an American, I'll tell you that. Let me say this, sir. Let's shift gears over to Iran for a moment. The mainstream media is having some fun, as they always do, creating false narratives and trying to permeate that through their 4 a.m. talking points and then the president has to come out on Truth Social and X and refute those things and put the facts out there. Skipping all that noise aside, how would you summarize the true status of Iran? And I want to mention this, right as we started to launch this broadcast moments ago, on my cell phone sent a feed across from Fox News that as I caught my eye, that Iran may have 6 U.S. hostages. I haven't had a second look into that, but that aside, what has really gone on in this? Well, we know what's gone on, but where is it at presently? So to help the people machete through the madness created by the false narratives of mainstream news, are we victorious? Trump's made it very clear we're not giving them $300 billion or whatever the noise was. Where is Iran at? Is this victorious? And are we basically moving on to other aspects of the operation in other geographical locations?
Iran's been under control for some time. What they're doing is just as DJT said many years ago, he's not going to telegraph his first military moves to the enemy. He's just going to do it. Similarly, the extraction is equally subtle. It's not a matter of we've won, we've gone. No, it's been a gradual decline in activity. This is mostly show, guys, just so you're aware. There's a slow winding down of operations. They're absolutely 100% under control. The Iranian people are progressively becoming more involved in the direction of their nation, so they get to determine it. But it has to be a slow phase out of that particular episode of the show as another one then opens up. So there's this constant flow of a storyline of success, the removal of the evil, the recapturing of control by the people, and then we move on to the next country. And so a pattern is being developed in the mind of the viewers exactly what to expect. So it's not a matter of go in, drop bombs, and leave, nor is it go in and nation build. No, we leave it up to the people. Now, that's the image. What's actually going on behind the scenes is very much assistance, but it doesn't come in a 5.56 round. That's been done in other technologies. That's been done. And now Iran, well under control. Bad guys are down. But the discussion has to wind down slowly to give it the impression of a normal operation, because the reality is far more high-tech, far more direct, and far shorter and far more effective. But the people aren't used to that. They have to watch the build-up, the crisis, and then the normalization of relations. So if you want to know what's going on in Iran and its impact on the Straits of Hormuz, I can tell you, look at the gas prices at the station, because they've dropped like a stone. So it's not like there is a problem. There ain't a problem. It's all good. Gas prices are down, and that's how people know that everything Iran is, as we say in Australia, everything's Jake. It's all good. And the normies are getting the target audience are getting the TV show they need to see in order for them to process that information.
Thank you. Yes, on the subject of gas, oil's dropped to like 73 last time I checked a day or two ago, down from high above 100 during this operation. And the president was trying to calm the nerves during that time when prices spiked everywhere and caused disruptions in various countries, including Thailand. And to just, it's a small price to pay. I'm paraphrasing what the president said at the time, small price to pay very temporary until and things will settle down. Well, of course, that things are now settling down. People should listen when the president speaks. And I will furthermore add that once this and other operations are concluded, I would suspect you'll because the power moved from a set of hands to a different set of hands, from London and so forth, and the Straits of Hormuz, Lloyd's of London as well, and everything else into other hands. And so I believe, I don't know when, I'm not an economist, but as operations continue to unfold, we already see, as you've indicated, oil and gas coming down. I think when all is said and done, you'll probably see oil maintained at a respectable level of maybe 40 something dollars a barrel, which is very low, which will prevent inflation. We have Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chairman under President Trump's control, going to be speculating to lower interest rates soon, which will, in other words, inflation was created by the central bank system and so forth to line their pockets and to empty ours. And that's all coming to an end. That's just one of so many benefits that came out of the operation in Iran. I want to talk about UFC Freedom 250. Folks, I realize, we live in a world where that's old news already, even though it's like a week old. The reason I want to have Riccardo weigh in on this is because of his keen sense, his brilliant mind, and his great analysis of events. And I'm going to haphazardly, to some extent, because I'm not fully structured for this, because there's a lot to cover. But let's go look at image one to my producer, do a 3-panel on this, and let's start walking through UFC 250. Major event, okay? Mainstream media, of course. How dare President Trump? You get the lunatics like, what's her name, Jane Fonda, and all the rest of them coming out of the closet. What is he doing on the White House? Hillary Clinton, how dare he do this on the White House lawn? Hey, how dare Bill Clinton do what he did in the Oval Office? But that's a different conversation. But, but point being, it was an easy thing for them to attack. What is he doing? UFC fights, South Lawn. This isn't what our White House is for. So at first glance, a cage fight at the White House may have seemed to be an odd addition to the America's 250th anniversary celebrations, but in reality, it is a profound public ceremony that provides the legal mechanism for the full implementation of the new American order, the restoration of national sovereignty under the law of the land and God's jurisdiction. I'm going to be teleprompted a bit here. I'll be paraphrasing, and all this, we're going to cover probably a half a dozen or more key things that really took place there that I'd like Riccardo to weigh in on. Allow me to continue for a moment. And by the way, folks, listening, this commentary that I'm providing here with Riccardo right now was provided to me by our good friend, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, a source that he had that he sent to me. I did a monologue on a broadcast I do called Eyes on Gitmo with Brigadier General Blaine Holt and Captain Pete Matasu, the eve of UFC 250. And I did a scripted 19-minute monologue based on this content, and it went viral. Just the Facebook post alone of it, a 19-minute monologue, had 1 million views in less than 24 hours. God knows how many views there are out there now. And why? It's not that I'm special or good at what I do. It's because the people want the truth. And we're talking truth here. And they ran to the truth. What is really UFC about? So we're going to have Riccardo break this down. So let me continue. To lawfully complete the shift under the law of the land, the sovereigns of that land, the American people, must give their explicit consent. That is the purpose of UFC Freedom 250. Far more than a sporting event, it served as the public ceremony required under Admiralty law rules, the people's visible endorsement of the transition of power into America's new order. So the 1-year process of restoring American sovereignty, the steps that have taken place in dismantling of Admiralty law. We have America recapturing its flag. That was part of this. June 14th, Flag Day, celebrates the adoption of the American flag of June 14, 1777. It's the true symbol of land jurisdiction and national sovereignty. It was on this day in 2025 that America initiated the legal process of removing itself from British Admiralty jurisdiction in order to restore its sovereignty and the law of the land. I'll continue and then we'll have Riccardo weigh in. America asked to return to God on April 18, 2026. We're connecting dots here, folks. It wasn't about wrestlers and fighters on the lawn. President Trump reads 2 Chronicles 7, 11, and 12 to the nation as an appeal to return to God in recognition of the original covenant of 1776, the Declaration of Independence, that places the nation under God's jurisdiction. And then we had the royals visit as witness April 27th to April 30th in 2026, as you recall, as the living trustee of the Admiralty-based system. The king and queen serve as legally recognized eyewitnesses. Their presence functions as formal acknowledgement of America completing the required legal steps for sovereign independence. I'm going to stop there. Let's go to 2-panel with Riccardo and have Riccardo comment on what I've just walked us through before we continue to analyze what took place at the UFC. Take it away, sir.
Absolutely. The key 2 words that you used, and I want people to bear this in mind as I describe the next couple of paragraphs. Visible endorsement. Visible endorsement. Now, there's a couple of stories I'm going to tell you so this makes sense. The people running the globe, the Committee of 300, we've spoken about this. Dr. John Coleman wrote an expose on the Committee of 300. If you have not read his book, The Committee of 300, you must do so because it makes sense in the sense that it explains how the Committee of 300 work, the rules by which they function. Because like any criminal cartel, you need rules. Otherwise, it's bad for business. You start whacking the wrong guys. So even criminals have rules. Committee of 300 have rules. Now, if you read their rules in detail, you'll come to the same conclusion I did after 1 or 2 pages. These people are insane. They're children. They think that if you do this and you do that, then you have given your permission to them to do anything to you. It's really as dumb as that. And it's because when you got generations of inbreeding running a planet, that's what's going to end up. They will believe anything if it's written and then stamped with a lovely stamp. Well, it must be true and legal, therefore we'll do it. But I can't go into the detail. But if you read the Committee of 300 rules for how they run the world, it's insane. They are imbecilic children, yet they are the rules that they apply. So when I first read what John explained to you about a public display by the people giving legal authority to another group of people, I'm thinking, grow up. Are you kidding me? This is just childish nonsense. How does a wrestling match on the front lawn and a few prayers to a god give you legal standing? It's because the Committee of 300 and the rulers of the planet say it does. So what's happening is this. Is it legitimate in any larger sense? No. Is it legitimate in the sense of the rules that the Committee of 300 used to rule the planet? Absolutely. So as we said before, DJT is now destroying the old world with their own rules. As nonsensical as it sounds to you and me and any right-thinking person, he's using their rules against them. A visible, what was the term? A visible agreement, concession. I can't remember the 2 words. Now, where has that been done before? Where's the evidence of what I'm saying is true? COVID. Now, our Governor General at the time, General David Hurley, who was the Governor General of Australia, was challenged and said, why won't you stand up against this obvious criminal activity called COVID? And he said, well, they voted with their feet. They agreed to get the jab. Therefore, they get what they deserve, literally. So that's the evidence of the Committee of 300 and the rulers of the world setting their rules up in place, their asinine rules, that if we tell them this in a movie and we drop a little hint there, then we've met our obligation to get informed consent from the people, which we know is nonsense. But in their heads, they've done what they need to do. They've told us what they were going to do, and then they went and did it because we did it. And so this quite childish and imbecilic set of rules, which they put in place and in their minds justified the mass extermination of millions of people around the planet, is being used against them to wrest back in the minds of just about everybody the power back into the hands of the United States, the legitimate constitution, the legitimate republic, and in the hands of the people. So it's a weird and wonderful process that must be gone through in order to provide some basis of understanding of why the old order is dead and the new world order, not the new world, not the one they ordered, but a new order resting on the original constitution and the original rights of the people, of a sovereign people of the United States, is now in place. DJT and the White House have had to play this complex game of playing these parallel lines of operation, parallel lines of effort, the one legitimate, sensible, constitutional one, and the nonsensical corporate entity that was created as the United States, and wrestling it back into the hands of the people. So if you think it seems odd that a wrestling match on a front lawn and an appeal to God has some legitimacy in the form of law, in a real sense it doesn't. But in the sense of what the system under which we have been living for a long time now, it is absolutely required, as dumb as it sounds, it is absolutely required to make it clear to all the bad guys, you set the rules, we played by your rules, and you lost. And so I'm not sure if I quite grasped it or communicated that clearly enough, but that's exactly what's going on.
Thank you. I think you certainly have, and I'm going to continue to move us through UFC 250, connecting further dots, and then have you weigh in on it. So we have Fed chairman steps down, all part of the dot connecting of maritime law ending and the power being restored back. Fed chairman steps down May 15th, 2026. The Federal Reserve has played a central role in upholding the British Admiralty maritime law-based commercial system that powers the debt-based global economy. By stepping down, it signals the shift back to American jurisdiction, back into the Treasury, executive branch, President Donald J. Trump. The national prayer of dedication, May 17th, another dot, 2026. This comes one full moon, a complete cycle, after the appeal to the nation to turn back to God. The National Jubilee of Prayer is the public act of rededicating America back to God, 2 Chronicles 7:14. It marks the withdrawal of consent, keyword, from the 1871 commercial system that Riccardo just alluded to, that quietly gave jurisdiction back to the British maritime system, and the restoration of the 1776 covenant. I'll continue for a moment. We'll have Rick weigh in. Again, folks, we're connecting the dots on UFC. It wasn't just about a fight and calling out Michelle Obama, which we're going to talk about later. But new Fed chairman sworn in May 25th, 2026. Kevin Warsh was sworn in under the law of the land, which was clearly signaled by the absence of the gold-fringed flag indicating Admiralty jurisdiction, and Supreme Court Justice pardon me, folks, Clarence Thomas administering the oath. Moving forward, using the old system to end the old system. Using the old system to end the old system. The transition touches every area of life, spiritual, legal, and economic. At its core is the replacement of the foreign-controlled Admiralty law-based legal and financial system that has long dominated the nation. The legal process that began on Flag Day, June 14, 2025, is now nearing completion. By dismantling this structure, America removes the foundation that protected corruption, debt slavery, and treasonous actors loyal to that very system. Resistance from those who benefited from that arrangement is inevitable. The transition will involve a turbulent battle against a deeply entrenched system, the storm that will precede the people's new order. Though intense, this period will be swift and necessary to remove the remaining barriers to national sovereignty. There are some more dots to connect on this in a moment, but we'll have Riccardo weigh in with any commentary on what I've just covered thus far.
Yeah. Once again, and you use the phrase, and it's exactly right, use the old system to destroy the old system. Now, again, does it make sense? No, but neither do the laws that, or the rules that allow 5 families to run the mafia in New York. They agree their systems. Now, the average New Yorker has no clue about the rules. You can't hit a madman, but they are rules that work. And so, again, and this is key, they've used the old system's rules to destroy the old system. Now, did they need to do that? No, they could have just walked in and arrested people, shot them, locked them up, thrown up, but that would not have been accepted by anybody. There needed to be a process, some sort of process by which there was some apparent legitimacy behind it. And this apparent legitimacy is what the Committee of 300 have used forever. The Admiralty law, why was that used? Well, it's a set of rules for an empire to go and take stuff that belongs to everybody else with the clever use of flags. That's it. It was a system. Oh, I put my flag here first. Captain James Cook stuck his flag in the east coast of Australia, I think a day or 2 or 3 before La Perouse, the French explorer, and through the clever use of flags, the UK secured the east coast of Oz. Does that make sense? Well, I guess sort of, if everyone agrees that's the rules. But in any real sense, does that make sense to stick a flag in its out? No, of course not. But that's how they played. So that's exactly what the White Hats had to do. Now, moving on from that particular point, you mentioned the short, sharp re-establishment of a new system or a return to the old system must occur. Can anybody tell me why? And going back to our previous subject of Iran, the Straits of Hormuz are blocked. Oil's not getting through. Oil prices are spiking. It's hurting the people. Oh my God! And yet, in record time, the price of the pumps drops. Now, why is that? Supply chains don't suffer shock like that and recover so quickly because it physically takes time to move oil in ships. So what did they do? They had oil ships parked, certainly in Australia, off our coast waiting to unload. They've been there for ages during the entire Iranian problem. There were ships loaded with oil waiting to unload. So what the White Hats cleverly did without telling anybody is they made sure that that shock to the supply chain didn't occur. We didn't have to wait a month for the oil to get pumped across, sail through the Straits of Hormuz and get to Oz, or get to the refining facilities in Asia and then to us, which is what happens in Australia. They had the oil ready to go. And so they cleverly, without anybody's knowledge, shortened the duration of the shock to the supply chain by having this stockpile loaded and waiting offshore in Australia. The same thing is going to happen now with the financial shock, because you think it's going to take, 10 days to reset the financial system for the globe? Are you kidding me? It takes more than 10 days to open a new bank account at my local community bank. And yet they know they have to have that supply chain shock, whether it's oil or money, makes no difference, as short as possible. So when Ioannis Sarvan says things like it'll be short, painful, but survivable, that's why. They're doing the same thing. The financial system has been worked on and built over the last many years. The Basel III rules by which banks operate have been well established, and the banks that couldn't meet the requirements have now quietly closed down, although you think they're still operating, but their offices are literally empty. Certainly one of the big 4 in Oz no longer functions. Publicly it is, but it doesn't. And so this parallel system has been built, as we've used the analogy before. They've put houses, the beams in the houses are rotten, so they build new beams, so when the old ones get torn down, the roof doesn't fall in. Same thing. So the financial system, to make sure there is no, quote, supply chain shock, is already ready to go. The old one will come down and the new one will kick in because it's already there. But again, publicly, you don't see it. Publicly, you don't know it. All you know is, oh my God, they've got strange colors on the TV screen. Something called EBS has started and the money's disappeared. And then a few days later, it all comes back. She'll be Jake. Once again, to give the impression that a shock has occurred, but we've recovered. No, the white hats are cleverer than that. That supply chain shock, whether it's oil, money, milk, meat, makes no difference. It's all been planned for. So the shock is there to get the people's attention, but it's not so long. And this has always been the concern, that if the supply chains for everything lasts more than 72 hours, by my calculation, you'll have people killing each other for a jar of Vegemite in Costco. As awful as you people find Vegemite, we love it and you don't. They'll be killing each other over that and baked beans. And so planning ahead, they knew that. So what you're watching, again, it's you've got to see these parallel. Actually, there's more than two. There's multiple lines of operation, multiple lines of effort, running very carefully balanced and in sequence. So sequence happens and they support one finishes, another commences, to make sure the shock is felt and real, but absolutely survivable. None of this is haphazard. This is planning to a degree that would make most engineers wince in terms of the granularity that's required to make this work, because we're dealing with not with machines which can be calculated and created to work in perfect harmony. We're dealing with humans, a lot of humans, and so managing that, the emotional state and the psychological state of the people, is of paramount importance while we're driving this. They are driving this amazing shift forward. So that's a very long-winded discussion, but you've got to forget the 40,000-foot view. You've got to sit on the moon and look at Earth and go, okay, that makes sense now. I can see this biggest of big pictures. So the last point I wanted to make on the Fed, the closing of the Fed, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm doing a bit of I'm just a simple soldier and my brain gets full quickly. But in 1913, when the Fed docs were authorized by Congress, if I recall correctly, that was a load of bollocks anyway, because they sent everybody on Christmas leave. They took the vote, it got through, and it was never properly ratified. Now, just to finish off what I was saying before, they could have disbanded the Fed a long time ago and jailed everybody. But that wouldn't have worked because too many people were invested in it. And so they've had to allow, for example, until recently, taxation to be considered real, but it's not, because that's fake and you don't have to pay tax in the US. And the Fed was never correctly authorized by Congress anyway, but they allowed that to keep running because they had to use that to destroy the old system. But now that the White House has successfully transitioned into the new system, we're on the cusp of transitioning. It's already sitting there and operating, but publicly that's not known. But when they transition, there's a little drop and everyone will be happy. And just to finish the image, it's like Wile E. Coyote falling off the cliff, but instead of dropping 100 feet to the bottom, there's a safety net about 3 feet down. So you'll see him drop, his heart will be in his throat, and he gets caught by the net and he's happy. And that's the people. We'll go off the cliff, there'll be a shock, we'll fall, but the net will catch us, and then we move on. And the collateral damage will be absolutely minimized.
Thank you for excellent analysis. I'm going to continue moving us through UFC because there's still some other takeaways to have you weigh in on. Pardon me, folks. While the national prayer of dedication was an essential step in establishing who the nation would place itself under, it was not the final legal trigger for America's new order. Under British Admiralty law, a shift of this magnitude still requires visible, again, public ritual that demonstrates the people's consent through participation and celebration. One of the oldest tools of the Admiralty system is now being used to secure that approval. Ordo ab chao. UFC Freedom 250 provided exactly that public spectacle, a high visibility event on the White House lawn that fulfills the ritual requirement and completes the transition to the new American order. I think of George Herbert Walker Bush. We all saw those video clips. There'll be a new world order. You know, not the law of the jungle, but the law of the land, and we will blah, 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 and, you know, nothing will stop it. And so, well, guess what, sir? sir, guess what, Bush? You were wrong, you were defeated, and the new American order is here. So auto ab chao is the hidden motto of high-level Freemasonry. For those placed in positions of power under their god, Satan, whom they believe to be the true savior and illuminator, it is the blueprint for controlled transformation. Create the chaos, then offer the new order as the solution. Classic problem reaction solution, also known as Hegelian dialectic. So their system is designed to engineer or exploit disruption through wars, financial crashes, moral collapse, social division, and fear. Once the people are terrified, confused, and desperate, the controllers step forward with their pre-planned, quote, solution. Their new systems of governance, their rules, their gods. However, because humans were created as powerful sovereigns of the physical realm, these systems cannot be lawfully imposed without the acquiescence of the governed. Their operating philosophy is simple: keep the masses ignorant, entertained, and emotionally invested in the spectacle, and they will unknowingly consent to the changes that follow. To obtain that permission, they stage public spectacles of visible, controlled chaos. When people cheer, participate, and become emotionally invested, their maritime law treats that participation as consent. According to their legal doctrine, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Once that consent is obtained, they can roll out the changes that follow. So UFC Freedom 250 is using that very same tool, but this time against the enemy. The spectacle on the White House South Lawn was not directed against the American people. Instead, it is aimed at dismantling the British Admiralty system that has long exercised jurisdiction over America, thus the world. Through public participation, the event secures visible support for the lawful transition to the new American order under the law of the land. Instead of using their tool to further bind the American people to their system, it is being used to bring that system to an end. The symbolism of UFC Freedom 250 is the dramatic event that created a major spectacle. It is classic, again, staged or ordo ab chaos, a highly visible event at the White House South Lawn, the center of American power. The two main events, lightweight title, the fights that we saw, took place. The co-main event, heavyweight titles, Alex Pereira and others, two foreign fighters. While the heavyweight division represents the foreign established powers battling for control, the lightweight division represents the common people. An American fighter in the main event on sovereign land symbolized the American people entering the final stage of conflict on their own ground. That octagon cage where the fights took place sat on the South Lawn, sovereign American land, not corporate territory. If you go to the Google Maps, it doesn't say Washington, D.C. anymore. Gone. This is the same ground where the king and queen stood as legal witnesses weeks earlier. A fight inside the cage became the perfect public ritual, visible emotional chaos that the crowd can cheer for. So in this symbolic battle, the American crowd's loud support for the fighters and so forth, by pouring their energy into the American fighter on sovereign American soil, the people, whether aware or not, are symbolically choosing the new land-based American order over the foreign maritime system. I'm going to move on and have Rick weigh in a moment. Excuse me, folks. You know, I've been battling some health issues. Their cheers act as acquiescence. The people's approval of the transition and acceptance of the storm that accompanies it. That consent makes the shift out of the old system lawful. The remaining events related to America's restored sovereignty, several key events still remain in the process of restoring American sovereignty and completing the transition to the law of the land. So Again, June 14, 2026, Flag Day, exactly 1 year after June 4th, 2025, when the legal process of removing Admiralty maritime law and restoring the law of the land began publicly, the American people delivered their loud consent through auto abcale on sovereign land, South Lawn. This allows for the transition that introduced the new system for the people. That brings us forward to what just took place in the G7 meeting, where President Trump walked in and so Trump-esque said, "What? I'm here. I am the boss." I love it. I love it. And so the G7 meeting, June 15th to 20, just took place the other day. President Trump presented to the American people accepting new order, including the storm that follows to the G7 leaders. These leaders represent the main powers of the old system. And Trump walks in and lays the law down. I am the boss. In their legal and ritual rulebook, a major international system cannot be dissolved in private. Trump's presence delivers formal, in-person notice that America is exiting the old Admiralty system and activating the new land-based system. This forces their acknowledgement and prevents any future legal or ritual challenge. I'll move forward and we'll have Rick weigh in. Trump's rally to end all rallies coming days away, June 24th. This serves as a victory lap that publicly celebrates the people's consent after formal notice had been given. Military bands will emphasize land-based authority, reinforcing the shift once again from maritime law to the land of power. The performance of Nessun Dorma, None Shall Sleep, the famous dramatic aria from the Sum of All Fears film, was played during the mass execution of traitors and deep state figures. With the people's permission now granted for the necessary storm, the old system's protectors shall sleep no more, as justice proceeds and their protections have been removed. I will pause here. We'll do one more round of all this, and then we'll conclude our show. Riccardo, do you care to weigh in on what I've just shared with you and our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the boss. It sounded like and was presented like a Trumpism. Trump being Trump. The ego has arrived. The ego has landed. Not at all. Again, using the old system to bring the old system down. That was a declaration, just like the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. It was a declaration. Trump walking into the G7 saying, "I am the boss," was a declaration. I'm running the show. They sat there and said nothing, and therefore their silence was consent. So it's this amazing game being played very subtly. So that leads me to the consent aspect. All of this is allegedly to garner consent. Now, the one truth that runs through this, the nonsense of Admiralty law and the clever use of flags and all that sort of nonsense, and then their rules about a declaration and a show of support by the people. I mean, who in their right mind would say that a cheering crowd indicates support for a change of government? They wouldn't. This is the nonsense of the old system's rules as though they were. But what is important is consent, informed consent. And what we're seeing, the death throes of the old system is informed consent now must become exactly that, informed consent. It can't be some sleight of hand. We put out a movie in 1986 and hinted in the second act that this is going to happen, and therefore you agree, and if you don't challenge it, you're guilty, you consented, ignorance of the law is your problem, not ours. That goes. And this is the key point. Certainly we're acutely aware of it in Australia, and Americans, if you're not already, you will be too. Consent is God-given. That's necessary. And if it's not God-given, if there is no God, let's talk to the people that don't necessarily believe in the Western view of how authority works. Subsidiarity, the role of the individual to take responsible for themselves. What other system would you prefer? Take your time. Do you want law to come from you, the average person, or do you want law to come from somebody else with a bigger gun? And that's what's been played behind the scenes the whole time. At any time, the US could have let the lads and the lasses off the leash and destroyed every adversary on this planet. Would have taken maybe a week and a half, and left a smoking ruin, and sat there and said, we win, you lose, tough. But they didn't. They have gone through the process, the painstaking and painful process of applying the old rules against the old empire so they could destroy them, so that you in the United States and then subsequently the rest of us around the planet, and that's why the 4th of July this year, in one sense, is the world's Independence Day, we then have the ability to pursue a form of governance genuinely predicated on the informed consent of the people. Now, this is the 4 July 4, 1776 for the globe. Now, most countries we know couldn't handle it if they wanted to, and most probably don't want to because they're run by psychopaths and crooks and pimps and pedophiles. But that's where we're transitioning to. So this whole journey, this difficult journey, has been necessary. But what waits at the end of this for us? Governance predicated on the will, the informed consent, and the will of the people. That system, A1's been working on that. We've been working on this for some time, so we're ahead of the game, which is great. But what's important in terms of the philosophy here is this is what is now open to the rest of the planet. And it is, by any definition, and there are many metrics to define a golden age, but to be able to apply God's will, we are responsible for our lives. Law, human law, derives from us. By any metric, this is the opening of the golden age.
Thank you. I'm going to conclude this UFC, and you dovetailed it perfectly into where I'm heading. The Great American State Fair, June 25th, 2026 to July 10th, 2026. It's a massive, joyous celebration stretching from the Capitol to the Washington Monument through exhibits, pavilions, performances, and family events. The nation will publicly rejoice in the people's consent to end the old system, restore the law of the land, and return the nation to God's jurisdiction, the beginning, as Rick, you just stated, of the golden age. I can just throw this in here real quick. Watch the left go berserk over the next month. Someone once said, I've eaten all my popcorn already. And I said, well, you know what? You like the movie Get a Bigger Boat? Get a bigger bucket because you're going to need one. But anyway, let me continue. Independence Day's 250th anniversary, July 4th. Now we're moving forward right to the present here and concluding the UFC analysis. July 4th, 1776 marked America's public declaration of independence from British rule and its placement under God's jurisdiction on the land. That independence was later quietly reversed through the 1871 Municipal Corporation of D.C. And again, go check out the Google map. It's gone. Placing the nation back under British Admiralty law. On the 250th anniversary, America completes the lawful process of reversing that quiet reversal, 1871. This is not merely a celebration, as Riccardo was just talking about, and it is all nations. It's the world is being liberated. This is not merely a celebration. It marks the symbolic and legal completion of the return to the original 1776 covenant and the full restoration of the law of the land under God's jurisdiction. So the storm, the public ceremony, again, is only the beginning. What follows is the storm. Some may question how it can be right to move forward without the people's full knowledge of these events. Why not simply tell everyone the truth? Americans already know what they need to know. They understand that the system is broken and corruption is rampant. What they don't understand is that their permission must still be obtained through the rituals of the very Admiralty law system most are unaware even exists. So rather than trying to educate the entire nation on that hidden system, which many would dismiss as conspiracy theory or outright impossible, the president is using the enemy's own rules against it for the benefit of the people he has been elected to serve and he has certainly taken all the darts and arrows for us. So in conclusion, storm begins when the existing system starts losing its legal and economic control. We're on the cusp of that now. Yet the storm is more than their resistance. It is the process by which the new system displaces the old one. Those who built their wealth, influence, and power within the existing structure will suddenly find that the protections they relied upon are no longer there, and the exit ramps are closed. Corruption will be exposed, is being exposed. Long protected bad actors will face and are facing accountability, and the legal, financial, and institutional foundations of the old system will be and are being dismantled and replaced with the new American order. So in conclusion, this is the true meaning of ordo ab chao. The difference is that it's not being used to enslave people. It's being used to dismantle the very structure that enslaved them. So UFC Freedom 250 was therefore more than a sporting event. It served as the symbolic movement when the people give their approval to the transition and to the storm that accompanies it. Though intense, the storm will be swift, and the enemy's moves have already been anticipated a long time ago in order to minimize its effects. This is not only for the benefit of the American people and economy, but as Riccardo alluded to a moment ago, but for the world as a whole, the entire world, as the consequences of such a transition will be felt far beyond America's borders. What follows is the dawning of a new era. America will begin healing, as the world will, under the law of the land, restored to its rightful place under God's jurisdiction. Other nations will soon follow this order out of chaos, but for a free people under God. That's my conclusion of the UFC analysis. What's your wrap-up conclusion, sir? And then I want to, we have to mention Michelle Obama, since that was brought to the world stage at the UFC. But before we go there, what's your analysis of my closing points of UFC?
Perfectly stated, John. I don't need to add a word. That was an exquisite conclusion to that piece. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Now we'll get into Big Mike. Let's put up an image. I've been friendly with this image. I could have put up a lot of other images. But, you know, I realize controversial. I realize conspiratorial. I realize, you know, we're down to the National Enquirer, but not really, folks. Because if Michelle Obama is a man, is that some form of treason, being an imposter first lady for 4 years? I don't know what you think about that. We can cover this. There's so many images and video clips we could run. There's evidence and proposed evidence to be debated. But I find it interesting that that fighter used the world stage to say, Michelle Obama is a man, am I right, America? And then shuffle on off. My analysis, but I'm curious as to what yours is, Rick, is it brings a narrative to the stage that's been brought to the stage before over all these years, but that was a big platform. I mean, there was a lot of people watching that. And it was so non sequitur, out of nowhere. Boom, here, listen to this. Now, of course, Dana White had to refute that and so forth and so on. I understand the mechanics of that. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, you know, but I don't believe the president has spoken out against that statement. And furthermore, I wish I had this available for me on screen right now. I read it verbatim in my JMC Weekly Unplugged to our subscribers, but I resurfaced a post when we had Twitter before taken over by Elon Musk and become X. Back in 2019, Michelle Obama had a page on Twitter, as did President Trump, and a screenshot of an exchange between Obama, Michelle, Michael LaVaughn Robinson and President Trump. The Michelle Obama X Twitter post in 2019 stated, man, I should just read it. I'll paraphrase it. President Trump said, "Hey, Big Mike, would you like to play, drop some hoops, play some basketball with us, invite Barack?" That was a public exchange between Michelle Obama and President Trump in 2019. I just figured I'd throw that out there. But anyway, the fact that Michelle Obama, to the best of my knowledge, any other first lady would have great cause to file a lawsuit for defamation of character, minimally, especially a high-seated position as First Lady of the United States. I don't think Michelle Obama has done that yet. What's your take on why she hasn't, and what's your view of this subject in general?
Oh man, I'm glad it's finally out there, and what a great way to introduce it publicly to the world in front of a bunch of cheering UFC fans who let's just say would have a very robust view of life, a very direct and robust view of life, and they had millions watching from overseas, and so perfect timing, perfectly staged, perfectly delivered. The fighter had a pattern he was supposed to go through, and he said, "Oh, bugger that." And he went straight to Big Mike. He said what he said. And so that's out there. Absolutely staged, absolutely by intention. The funny thing is, most people don't care about gays. You're gay, you're great, whatever. We don't care. Don't shove it in our face. But your point about lying or the deception, now, I don't think there's anything legal that can be done or needs or wants to be done. But the deception is one thing that people are heartily sick of. I know, I certainly am. There's deception after deception after deception, and that erodes trust. And trust is the foundation of any relationship of any nature. If you don't trust the other person, there is no relationship. And putting your trust into your president with all the power that allows, and for that president to be disingenuous in the nature of his relationship with his boyfriend, erodes it all. Now, for those people that don't think this is the case, that this is all nonsense and conspiracy theory, let me just sideline you for a bit with this discussion. Do you recall when Big Mike was first in the White House as Obama's bride, and all the magazines were saying, "Isn't she beautiful?" Now, by no metric is she a beautiful woman. I mean, as a bloke, okay, he's Michael LaVaughn Robinson. Great. He looks like a black man, not even a particularly attractive black man, to be honest. And there are some stunning African-American women. I mean, absolute stunners. But they put this ugly, how can I put it in your lingo? Some ugly ass dude, and the magazines are saying how beautiful she is. And just to really drive the point home, then Melania Trump is the next first lady and never gets on one magazine cover. You don't think that it's by design. Think about it. This ugly ass dude is being told she's a beautiful woman. She's not even an attractive man, unfortunately. He's just ugly. And so this thing's been dragging on for the longest time. And then there's shows on Ellen where Big Mike's swinging, and you can see why they call him Big Mike. I think he might be wearing the pants in the family, let's just say. And the fact of Barack Obama's homosexuality, the fact that he's a Kenyan, the fact that he was bought and paid for by a Saudi. The whole thing was a setup. The truth's got to come out somewhere, and the easiest way to get it is to go via good old Big Mike and run it that way, and then the people can work their way backwards to find out they've been deceived in the worst possible way. And the whole thing was the greatest act of treason since forever. The deception, now strict treason, probably not. But in terms of the damage, the disingenuousness, the deception has done, you couldn't get anything better, because the average person doesn't care, and yet you had to do it to them. You had to lie to them. You had to normalize something surreptitiously, as opposed to just being out and proud and saying, "You know what, I like big black men," says Barack. Well, he didn't want to do it. And so that deception is there. The people will never forgive it, ever. The LGBTQ plus community, whatever the hell that stands for, the alphabet people, they're going to pay the price for being quiet about it. All they wanted was acceptance. You always had it, recently at least. And your treatment of the heterosexual community has been discourteous, to say the least, and you're going to pay for it for the rest of your miserable bloody lives. All those advantages you thought that you had to fight for, you weren't getting, you had them a long time ago. You pushed it too far. You reached for the brass ring and you fell off the horse. So bad luck to you. And so it's a wonderful way of actually wrapping up the end of this deception with something as basic as that, something as emotive as that, something as foundational as that, the nature of a relationship between a husband and a wife, and you've made it a sick parody, not because of any ideological problem, because you lied to us, and there's no coming back. So I think it was perfect. I think UFC was exactly the perfect moment to do it. It's been beautifully directed, this movie. The best show on TV was Frasier, and I reckon they must have got a couple of Frasier producers and directors to run this, because it's exquisite in its application of detail to the messaging. And that's why it had to be that. And I think it was the perfect bomb to drop at that moment to really put the final nail in the coffin to the old order.
Wow. I hadn't thought of it that way. You're absolutely right. And my closing comments on the issue of Big Mike, and we could do a very detailed show on it with all kinds of videos and images, but we have other battles we're taking on right now. The fact that it was exposed at UFC that way did the job for us. But I would like to close this out now with this comment. First off, why hasn't Michelle Obama, because everyone's saying, well, she should go sue him. Well, because in a lawsuit, you have something called discovery. Oops. Oops. Okay, you're going to have to prove your position. Oops. Double entendre with the words here. But that's an interesting situation. So keep in mind, keep that on the top of the mind. No lawsuit for obvious reasons. Next thing I would like to mention, we remember the late Joan Rivers. We saw the video clip. We already have a gay president in Obama. It's okay. It's okay. Michelle's a tranny. Everybody knows that. 2 weeks later, she was dead. And there's a lot of interesting scenarios concerning what happened. Then you have the president himself. I wish I would have surfaced that image in advance in this show. The Twitter post I talked about, calling her Big Mike. And then you have, there was a video clip, not as famous as you alluded to, Rick, the Ellen DeGeneres dance to the Bruno Mars song, I think it was. That was obvious. But separate from that, there was one that got less traction than that, but it was even more prevalent than the Ellen DeGeneres dance, was Michelle coming out of looked like a brownstone and building, I don't know, some building either in DC or New York. You could tell, kind of just rolling out of bed thing, wearing, sports gym sweatpants. And, there was a limousine there, and they were coming out of the building and security, and she runs into the limo, and she's running and, grabbing the crotch area, controlling the swinging movement. Sorry to be semi-graphic, but that's the video. You can go watch that one. And then there's, as you said, the Ellen DeGeneres issue and so many other things. But there you have it. We ended an interesting broadcast with a lot of important information from the beginning to the end, ending with Big Mike. But it's important because of the deception and the lie, as you stated, not necessarily a commentary on a gay issue. That's not the subject matter here. The subject matter is the deception at very, very high levels that the world and the American people may have very well been lied to. And in my humble opinion, as we wrap this broadcast up, that's going to come out officially one way or the other at some point in time. And But again, we have much bigger fish to fry than worrying about what's underneath the pants of Michelle Obama. And so we'll continue to do Bosi Briefs in 2 more weeks, covering the other issues of the day. But before we sign off this broadcast, Rick, anything else you care to share with us before we end this broadcast?
Yeah, congratulations to the USA defeating Australia 2-1 at the World Cup. You won it fair and square. The Australians were flat-footed. They got tired. Had some good shots, but you've done very well. There was one sad scene where one of the US players grabbed the Australian by the shirt. Now, in Australia, it's called as the beautiful game. It's soccer, beautiful game. And it's been degraded, unfortunately, by the European cheats. And they cheat mercilessly. They'll fall over, grab their face and pretend they've been damaged, and they get a penalty. Gentle word of advice from a friend: don't go down that path, US, because you don't need to. The Europeans do. They're just bloody awful at it. They're disgusting. They've ruined a beautiful sport. I played soccer, loved it. Top goal scorer in my team. I was up front, striker. Beautiful game, wonderful game. Can be played hard, can be played fair. Don't cheat, no need. Don't grab shirts. Let the ref do his job. But other than that, well done, US, on defeating us. We'll have to have a rematch at some time and make sure that we give you a lesson in humility. But other than that, I'm done. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Let's put up an image of Riccardo's book in its 5th printing. You can also follow Riccardo Bosi. Visit my site, jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on contributors on the upper left-hand portion. You'll see 107. You'll see many military, intelligence, economic, and healthcare experts, and Riccardo Bosi right there at the top. You can read about his biography and links to connect up with Riccardo that goes far beyond his work, that goes far beyond his appearances here with me. And you can pick up a copy of Greatness Awaits You by going to www.wilkinsonpublishing.com.au, also at amazon.com. Thank you, Rick. Good seeing you, sir. Thanks for your analysis and commentary on the subjects we addressed in this broadcast. I'll be right back after this important announcement to close out the broadcast. Thank you, sir.
The Truth About Health premieres this month as a weekly JMC Broadcasting production with Christy Lee as your show host. Christy Lee is an award-winning former mainstream news anchor and independent journalist with more than 20 years of experience in broadcasting. Honored as Best Anchor and Best Enterprise Reporting honors, she later anchored at a Fox affiliate in California before walking away from legacy media after witnessing its deepening lack of journalistic integrity and shift toward propaganda. Christy is a fearless voice for the voiceless and a staunch advocate for holding power accountable. She's been featured on Fox News, The Bongino Report, InfoWars, Lindell TV, and numerous independent platforms nationwide. She has interviewed high-profile figures including RFK Jr., Dr. Robert Malone, General Michael Flynn, Ron Paul, Carrie Lake, and many more. The Truth About Health premieres June 2026 as a weekly JMC Broadcasting production. This weekly broadcast features expert doctors, scientists, and healthcare professionals. We don't reject science, we go further in it. We go beyond symptoms, headlines, and hype, bringing you the truth about what actually heals the body. Thorough healthcare coverage, including new technologies, legislation, and justice, will also be addressed. Sign up for free at jmcbroadcasting.com and tune into The Truth About Health with Christy Lee, only on jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right. Well, thank you again, Riccardo Bosi, for your keen insights and brilliant analysis in helping us all to make sense of the times that we're living in. Quick announcement, we'll be out of here in 60 seconds. We have lots of different programming at JMC Broadcasting, all niche-focused, produced programming. Obviously, Global Defense War monthly panel in its 2nd year, which also features Riccardo Bosi every month. So you can tune into that. We have Eyes on Gitmo in its 2nd year with Brigadier General Blaine Holt, Captain Pete Matasu, Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, and 107. You'll want to tune into that monthly broadcast. We have the Global Financial Reset weekly live show covering all things in the reset. and it's an action-oriented broadcast, actually, of how you can get out of the system and avoid some of the transitionary problems and seize the incredible opportunities that are happening right now. We have healthcare, as you just saw, with Christy Lee. Premiere show was just launched this week. Check it out. Bringing all the best doctors in to give you the truth about healthcare. We have many other broadcasts. Sheila Holm, a special report with Sheila Holm each and every month. I sit down with Sheila. She does great research, and she's a wonderful patriot. And so tune into all of our broadcasts. We have a broadcasting guide available for you so you know which shows we have. We just launched Off World with JMC. I'm so excited about this because, well, watch the show. Tell me what you think. But anyway, broadcasting guide on the homepage of jmcbroadcasting.com. All our current shows are there, one click away. And you can hit the follow tab on the navigation bar and all the different social media platforms and places we distribute our show. Whatever platform suits you. We've got YouTube, we got Rumble, we got X, we got Truth Social. They're all there. Come and follow us and like us on these platforms. And I want to thank my Australian friends for liking and sharing our work. I read some of your comments. God bless you all. You've got Riccardo Bosi, and you are blessed and fortunate to have his experience, vision, and leadership to help Australia become great for once. Anyway, thank you all very much. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.